Have you heard that there is a flanker soon to come out for this very, very popular Mancera fragrance? This is Mancera's Cedrat Boise, and soon to be released Intense Cedrat Boise in Extrait de Parfum concentration. Anyway, I heard about this and I wanted to share the news with you guys and also go over the original Cedrat Boise and give you 4 alternatives of this particular fragrance. So if you want to find out about Mancera's Intense Cedrat Boise, which comes in Extrait de Parfum concentration, then please stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian, and yes, today I'm talking about an up-and-coming release from the house of Mancera called Intense Cedrat Boise, and it will be in Extrait de Parfum concentration. This is Eau de Parfum, so it's going to be concentrated, it's going to be heavier, more intense. Intense is what it's called, but thankfully we are getting a more heavier concentration, whereas sometimes brands do intense but they give us the same concentration, so this is a great thing. Anyway, I'm going to let you know about this. I don't have too many details except for I was sent some photos by someone. I first thought, you know what, is this fake? Is it some kind of fake or something? But then I actually asked around and it is definitely coming out, so the only thing is I don't really know when the dates for the launch are. Anyway, I'll get to that, but also some of the alternatives or, you know, similar fragrances to this. But before I do, if this is your first time tuning into the channel and you still haven't subscribed, please do click the subscribe button below and also click the bell so that you'll be notified for future videos and giveaways. So yeah, Mancera's Cedrat Boise is a very popular fragrance for this house, but everybody knows or says, okay, it's you know, an alternative or a copy or clone of this particular fragrance, Creed's Aventus. Yes and no to me. They're a little different, but I could see the inspiration. They're not identical. At least the notes that each brand reports for usage in the fragrances are a little different and then a little of the same. But to me, I find differences between these two fragrances, whereas they are very similar, but then they are also different because they do wear differently. For me, this wears a lot sharper and this wears a lot fruitier and smoother. Not necessarily like sharp like a metallic touches, which the Aventus can come off. At least to my nose it does. But we're talking about Intense Cedrat Boise today. Yeah, so I received an email. Well, actually I received a comment and I was like, is this real? I asked them to send me photos. They sent me photos. And I was told not to, you know, reveal them, which I'm not going to reveal their info. But apparently somebody knows somebody, and they were in the Paris boutique for, I think it's the boutique for Montal and Mancera together, and they were shown the actual new bottle of this, which is the Intense Cedrat Boise, and of course it comes in Extrait de Parfum, which the label shows Intense Cedrat Boise, and then the concentration shows down here in, you know, Extrait de Parfum. I'm going to add photos to this so you can actually see that I'm not really pulling your leg, and I also wanted to kind of get this out there for you guys to see if you're really, really excited about this particular release. How many of you are fans of the original? A lot of times I've been hearing lately is that it's gotten weak, it's been reformulated. Some of you have been saying that, yeah, fragrances do go through reformulations, but there's also the chance that we burn out our noses. So when we're wearing a fragrance for years and years and years, not even that long, you know, sometimes just for a year, I don't know the timing, but sometimes your nose might start smelling something not as strong because we're so used to it, so you might have to relax your nose. So I don't know if it's true with the reformulations here. I'm not 100% sure. The thing is, there's lots of fans of this, and yes, some of you do complain that it's gotten the reformulation, and so maybe perhaps that's why Mancera is doing an updated version. I don't think so. I think they're doing it because they're wanting to capitalize on a popular fragrance already and to give us a more concentrated and more intense version of it, because you know, this is a freshie after all. It's a very, very lemony experience, and then again, that's contrasting to this because this is supposed to be pineapple bergamot. This is more citruses. They don't mention the pineapple here, and I get kind of like a sweet lemon, also kind of like a tart bergamot kind of a combo. Perhaps it could also feature a few other citrusy notes, but don't get the pineapple with this one. But there is a little bit of a fruitiness from black currant in here, and you definitely experience the black currant, whereas this one has black currant leaves, cassis leaves. This is the actual fruit. And here we have some apples, and this particular fragrance doesn't have apples. This is according to the Mancera website, which is where I got notes for this. Because when you compare the notes for this on Fragrantica or some other database with the Mancera website, Fragrantica says there are fruity notes. Yeah, I mean, it comes off fruity here, but I don't really get that much of a fruitiness. I think if I'm going to say it's fruity, there is a little chance that it might kind of smell like pineapples, but more of a ripe pineapple-y touch rather than a tart one, unripe, because this is how this particular fragrance smells. It's a very unripe and tart pineapple, whereas here it's sweet, it's ripened, although there are some, you know, sour tart touches in here, but it is a very, very balanced citrus, so it comes off sweet and kind of calming rather than like sharp, kind of like with this, it's pretty sharp, so it kind of wakes up your senses a lot more. But for me, this particular fragrance is mostly about citruses. There is a leathery touch, which Aventus is known for the leather as well. Of course, the black currant adds the fruitiness, and there's lots of woods. Oakmoss, jasmine, and patchouli. There's a light floral touch with this one, very, very light. And of course, the patchouli adds this kind of earthiness to it, and it kind of balances out the fragrance because it's mostly about the citruses and leather. But to me, I don't get a very big dosage of leather, and the leather is a very wearable leather. I think citruses pretty much dominate the fragrance, and everything else that comes after it are not, you know, the same amount of the citruses that are featured in here. So that's what this particular fragrance is. Now, when we're going to compare it to Intense Cedrat Boise in Extrait de Parfum concentration, which I'm really, really excited about, I would think they're going to amp up some of the notes to intensify this, similar to, let's say, for example, the video you just watched the other day from me, from this channel for Reflection Man compared to Reflection 45 Man, which is, we're dealing with citruses, kind of like fragile notes, and the way they're going to probably intensify this is probably with woods, adding more woods. So it might be less citruses, whereas it could smell the same, but you experience it woody kind of. That's kind of what I'm visualizing the Intense Cedrat Boise to go in that direction, because citruses can be intensified, but they're still kind of very fragile notes, very weak notes. That's why they're typically found in the top, and they, you know, vanish pretty fast. But here, you know, this is mostly about the citruses, but still they do vanish by the time you get to the base notes with a very, very kind of like light hint of the citruses that are there. So basically I feel like this Intense Cedrat Boise will be intensified with more of the woods, and maybe perhaps amplifying it with the Oakmoss, maybe the patchouli, perhaps even the jasmine. Jasmine generally appears in the heart notes or any floral notes. They're sometimes found in the top notes and the base notes, but typically it's a heart note. And maybe they're going to intensify it with these notes to give us more of an intense version. We shall see what they do, but generally though, intense versions of citrusy fragrances, for me, they don't really work too well, which I want them to work because I absolutely love citruses, so we shall see what they will do with it. This is a 120 ml bottle, and it retails for about $180. Of course, they're available at the discounters. You can get them for better deals. And I also have a Twisted Lily link in the info box. You can go directly to the distributor of Mancera, which is Twisted Lily and Euro Perfumes, and you can get it there fresh from the source at a discounted rate. There's a discount code. So I think for this to be you know, Extrait de Parfum, an intense version, I'm assuming the price is going to be a little higher. I'm thinking it'll be somewhere around the $220, $245 range. I could be wrong, but somewhere around there. But we shall see how it is. I'm excited for this Intense Cedrat Boise, and I like, you know, intense fragrances, so we shall see how it turns out. But let's go ahead and talk about 4 alternatives to this, or maybe even this, which I'm going to feature Aventus. So yes, the first alternative I'm going to talk about is Creed Aventus, and of course I've already spoken about it here. I've told you what I picture here. I find this particular fragrance to be a lot sharper, as I said, and not as fruity. It doesn't come off very, very fruity to me, but you know, there is fruits there, and when you're wearing it also, it starts kind of opening up and becoming fruitier. But to me, this one is right off the bat fruity, and it's actually sweeter. It's a sweeter kind of a, not necessarily extremely tart, sharp kind of a tartness in comparison to this. So that one is a little balanced. This one's definitely sharper, a little more metallic, but this is probably one of the most popular men's fragrances overall. And Neiman's had told me one time, several years ago, that this is one of their biggest selling fragrances in the entire store. I don't know if that refers to the store itself or online as well, but it's very, very popular. But I think because it's so popular, people make so many alternatives of it or even clone it, and that's why we have so many different versions of it. This came out in 2010. The original Cedrat Boise came out in 2011. Was this inspired by this? Could be, because it came out a year after. So yeah, so that's what the deal is with this one. But with this one, as I said, there is that you know, cassis leaves or the black currant leaves, but there's no black currant mentioned. But there is the apple here, and I find apples in general to be crispier to begin with anyway. So there's definitely a crispness, a sharpness about this particular fragrance. But you know, it's a popular fragrance, and it does smell great. It is a very, very crowd-pleasing fragrance, which I forgot to mention this is as well. But yeah, this whole genre of fragrances I'm speaking about are very, very crowd-pleasing fragrances. So that's the first fragrance I'm going to talk to you about. So the next fragrance I'm going to talk to you about is Nishane Hacivat. This is a kind of, you know, I don't consider it to be like it's an alternative. Is it a clone? I think it's not necessarily a clone because it's not identical, but I think the inspiration is definitely there. But this particular fragrance is an Extrait de Parfum concentration, so they are giving us an Extrait de Parfum concentration soon. Is it going to smell more like this one? So for me, this is also kind of more in the sharpness area towards Aventus versus Mancera's Cedrat Boise. I find this to be sweeter, a little more balanced. This one definitely wakes you up your senses. It's sharp, it cuts through, and it has that kind of like invigorating blast, but very, very intense. It's a little bitter. It's a, you know, it's grapefruit is in here as well, in addition to the pineapple, which is trademark for Aventus. But it's Oakmoss, pineapple, grapefruit, bergamot, patchouli, and jasmine. So similar notes. The jasmine is here, the patchouli is here, bergamot's here, grapefruit. And I like this one a lot. I like its sharpness, and I also like its intensity, and I also love its longevity. It's a beefy version of all of these fragrances currently I'm speaking about. Like the most intense. If you want it really, really strong and definitely sharp, a little bitter, you've got to try Hacivat. I love it. It's very, very sexy, but once again, it's a crowd pleaser on you with your own chemistry. It'll open up and sweeten up and things like that. But definitely, initial blast, I find it to be has similarities to Aventus's kind of like, not bitterness as much, because I find this to be a little bitter than the Aventus, but the sharpness and the metallic touches definitely, you know, equals both of them. Anyway, Hacivat I think is definitely a great fragrance, and I can only imagine that Cedrat Boise or Intense Cedrat Boise is going to go in the direction of this, but a more fruitier version, because this is Extrait de Parfum, as I said, and Intense Cedrat Boise will become Extrait de Parfum. So the next fragrance I'm going to talk to you about is from the house of Vilhelm Parfumerie, Morning Chess. A lot of people compare this to... oh, I didn't mention, I should take that back. I should mention the date of this one. This was launched in 2018, so many years after Aventus came out, and of course many years after Mancera's Cedrat Boise came out. But this is a 2015 launch, Vilhelm Parfumerie's Morning Chess, which I have reviewed on the channel, and I also have a video, a top 10 of Vilhelm Parfumerie fragrances. This is, to me, again, once again, a little more like this versus the other two, but greener in this direction, if that makes sense. This is lots of leather, galbanum, bergamot, patchouli, and ambergris. So that galbanum adds the greenness, and of course, just taking this and then adding the greenness to it, and then, you know, taking out the sweetness a little bit, because this is not as sweet as this. This one to me is sweeter, a little ambery sweetness, whereas it's a little, maybe there's like orange sweetness in there, because it does say citruses. It doesn't necessarily say lemons on the Mancera website. So there is a little bit of sweetness there. This one's not as sweet as the Mancera, and definitely a lot greener than the Mancera. But it is a really, really great fragrance. It's very, very fresh. Once again, a crowd pleaser, and you know, people tend to like these kind of fragrances because it's a very, very pleasant smell. It's citrusy and woody at the same time. And you know, this is a unisex offering, but I find this particular genre to definitely lean on the masculine side. Anyway, Morning Chess. And then one more fragrance. I'm going to talk about Zara's Vibrant Leather. And this is the second version of Vibrant Leather. They came in a different bottle before. But this is a very, very cheap fragrance, but smells like, you know, Mancera Cedrat Boise. To me, it smells more like Mancera Cedrat Boise than Aventus. And this features bergamot, leather, and bamboo, according to the notes, whereas there's no pineapple once again here. None of the fragrances had pineapple except for the Nishane Hacivat, but you know, it's notes, and our nose can play tricks on us, and you know, there's a little bit of a pineapple-y touch in here, but it's a really, really great scent, and it's definitely a great value too. For about 30 bucks, it's a 120 or 125 ml bottle. You can smell like Aventus or Mancera Cedrat Boise or any of the other fragrances for less expensive. But to me, this Vibrant Leather is more like Mancera Cedrat Boise than Aventus, even though these fragrances all will remind you of one another. If you're looking for an you know, inexpensive alternative to any of these fragrances, this is it. But as I said, to me, this is more similar to Cedrat Boise than Aventus. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Exciting. We're going to get intense Cedrat Boise very, very soon. Let me know if you're excited about this. Let me know if you're a fan of Cedrat Boise or any of the other fragrances, and how excited are you for the new intense Cedrat Boise from Mancera, which comes in the Extrait de Parfum concentration. Anyway, put a comment down so I can find out. Either way, guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.